Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Coffee with Chris. As always, brought to you in association by our charity partner, 𝗖𝗵𝗄𝗵, who help local people affected by cancer, and proudly sponsored by Hill Coaching Company, here to help you become a better version of yourself today. Now, let's get stuck into this conversation. I'm pumped to welcome Paul Banks, founder of Javelin Content, getting ideas out of your head into video, and the bit I like, out onto your socials. Paul, welcome to A Coffee with Chris. Let's kick off with this question. Video content pyramid. If I say that to you, what does that actually mean?
First of all, thanks for having me on the show, Chris. Really appreciate the opportunity to come on the podcast, and I love coffee. So yeah, let's. I haven't got one though. In the manic rush, I forgot to bring one with me. But no, pleasure to be here. Content pyramid with a video at the top, I think, is where a lot of people should start, but are worried about starting. Right. I speak to a lot of people who have this underlying knowledge that a content strategy is something that they need. It's something that adds to their efforts and means that they're progressing in the right direction, but they're scared of it. Everybody's scared of strategy because it means I've got to put some effort into this as opposed to just kind of getting along, right? We all just want to get on with our jobs. And it's, let's be honest, nobody set up business apart from me and you really to be active on social media, right? Like that's not what our day-to-day jobs are for the majority of people. And what I suggest to people who I work with is that actually, when you get into a conversation, so me and you networking just before the show even, it's very natural for us to have a conversation and to be able to download our thoughts to each other and exchange ideas and information. And if you can get into the habit of doing that around the topics that are the key themes and ideas behind your content strategy, then actually you can download your brain really efficiently and in a way that engages people. The trick is to have somebody you can bounce that idea off or getting comfortable monologue into a camera. And not many. I can do it now. It's been a work in progress. I still hate seeing myself on camera, ironically, right? But that video itself becomes the basis for all of the other assets that you produce for that month. So you've got your content strategy for the quarter, for the month, for the week. That's great. But by basing your content from that easy download from your brain, you can take the transcript and use it to create long form articles, short form articles. You can use it to create posts. You can clip it up into small. There's a multitude of different ways that you can reuse that video. But by having that video first, you're ensuring that you're talking about that one topic or set of topics that your content strategist has told you need to talk about, and the things that you find it really hard to just write something about when it comes to that Monday morning. You sat there at the keyboard thinking, right, I need to write a blog this week. Where do I start? But instead, flip it on its head. Just have a conversation about it. And you'll get all the starting points. Even if you still need to write that blog yourself, you've got all the starting points and the topics there. It's just a very intuitive way. As humans, we love telling stories. We love communicating with each other. And for me, that is the most natural way of getting out of somebody's head the real passion and motivation, which often their long form content and even their short form content really lacks.
I'm so with you, Paul. And my observations are, very polite observations are, business owners don't realize that by committing to video, just how many extra digital assets you can get out of that little commitment. And I know it feels like a big commitment. So just geek us out on this, Paul. So say, for example, you sit down with one of your clients and you interview them for, say, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes. How many extra assets in that video content pyramid can they get? And what types of assets can they use for their social off the back of that one video?
I think that's changing all the time, quite honestly. And with the advent of things like large language models and intuitive AI that we can all use, and the third-party tools that are now using them, it becomes ever easier to create. And this is the key, right? If you ask that technology to create things on its own, it does a really poor job. When you start off with your viewpoints and expertise from video, all of a sudden it's got something to base those things on, and it can actually go to town and create some very good 80% of the way, 90% of the way assets that you can then utilize yourself. The way I talk to clients around the video is like 20 minutes, you can fit it in a half-hour conversation. You've got 5 minutes to say hello, 5 minutes to say that was horrible, please don't do it again, and 20 minutes in the middle where you're actually talking. And that's one meeting a month. And I talk to my clients about that content will probably last you 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how you use it. Underlined by the idea that the only person that gets bored of your content is you. So you might spend 20 minutes talking about a topic, and then you're going to create posts for 4 weeks or 5 weeks or 6 weeks from that. And you might think to yourself, God, that's going to get really boring. But actually, your post is only ever seen, each post that you put out on socials at maximum is going to be seen by 10% of your audience, and in a good deal of people who've never met you before. So realistically, you need to post that 10 times before they've seen the same thing more than once, right? And what I say is, right, everybody absorbs things in different ways. So I'm actually, ironically, although I work with clients to get video recorded, I actually don't like learning from video myself. I prefer audio or written. And I'm neurodivergent, right? I'm ADHD, so that's the way my brain works. I like to be able to just scan through, get the important bits out. I don't want to have to watch a video. So to come back to your question then, the sky's the limit, really. I talk to people about 100 or more assets from a 20-minute video because I try not to scare people off. But actually, I've handed back from a 25-minute video 600 plus assets.
Really?
And what I mean by that, what I mean by an asset is, it's depends purely on how they want to get out there, right? So some people have got a fantastic brand, lots of vivid colors, lots of different ways you can do things. And for those people, you might have 4 or 5 different formats that you'd use to get even just a landscape video out there. So like this, we've got a frame around the outside of the podcast here. You might want to do something like that, but have it in your 4 main primary colors that you use for your brand. Or you might want to use your secondary colors so it's not quite as in your face. I don't know. I'm not a graphic designer. But we do that in, say, 2 or 3 different brand colors. We might do it in portrait, landscape, and square. So the important thing I say to people is, you're going to record video, do it in landscape. If you do it in landscape, I can cut it down to square, I can cut it down to portrait. I can't make portrait landscape without you having a big fat head. And nobody wants a big fat head, trust me. With a bald head like this, trust me, nobody wants it. Nobody wants that. So you can turn that 20 minutes into maybe 15 or 20 micro moments, right? Reels, if you like, for Instagram or TikTok style. We'll try and get down to about 60 seconds to a minute, maybe 2 minutes of content done in 3 or 4 different color schemes. Each of those color schemes done in 3 or 4 different output formats. Then you can get onto audiograms where actually you're not using the video feed, you're just using the audio. Karaoke style captions, waveform across the middle. Then you get into quotes images because, and this amazed me, right? AI is phenomenal at pulling out. It makes me sound like I'm Einstein or something, right? Like, because I'll be talking about something. I'm like, if somebody said to me, Paul, what was a great phrase that you used in that podcast? I'd be like, oh, I didn't say anything interesting in that podcast. I just rambled for half an hour. And actually, I ask AI to pull out inspirational, motivational, educational quotes. It actually comes out with some stuff, and I'm like, I remember saying that, and it didn't sound that intelligent when I said it. It didn't sound that profound when I said it. And actually, just that image of a quote on the screen, not me trying to be inspirational and say something game-changing for everyone, but just talking about things that are everyday value for people that they might not realize, that's a post in its own, because all of a sudden you've got a starting point to write a text-based post from. Animate those quotes. There's another set of 20 images, right? You start with images, you get 20 GIFs, you can get 20 MP4s out of that. Again, different color schemes, different sizes. You can create blogs, you can create newsletters, you get the transcript for your website designer. You can create YouTube summaries, you can create YouTube summaries for the micro clips. And all of a sudden you get this, and it sounds mind-blowing, right? Like, but you've got to remember, it's just 20 minutes of your video cut up in lots of different ways, so you can pick and choose what works best for you. And that's the important thing.
I mean, I'm speechless at the 600 number. It's phenomenal. And threaded with all of the answer that you just gave, Paul, I think which is perhaps an unglamorous or perhaps unsexy thing to say, a lot of this is about mindset and self-belief with social media and video content, right? Because logistically and with all of the tools and tech that we've got on our side now, such as AI, etc., we can build countless number of assets. But I feel a big part of it is owning the fact that you can actually create all these posts and repost. I'm so happy that you've mentioned that, because so many people that are on social media on a Monday as a business leader, they won't be on a Friday, or maybe they don't have the time during the week, so they log on a Sunday night. And even say, for example, Paul, through a company like yourself or another one, or if they're able to create this video content pyramid themselves, actually being okay with the fact that you can repeat content in itself. It's like whatever your number is, times it by 2 and repeat that content, because that, especially if it's non-time sensitive. And I could go off on a massive rant and ramble about how social media, I think, is being mistaken for something that's further down the marketing funnel than it actually is. It's just top line brands so much of the time, speeding up the process between prospect and customer, and you don't have to overthink it. That's why our business tagline is making social simple. So I love that stuff. And linked to that mindset piece, Paul, I really want to ask you about a very common problem, which a lot of business leaders speak to me about, and I know for a fact that they're going to be speaking to you about this. Why are business leaders anxious to get themselves on camera? What is it about that? And how can you possibly overcome this ceiling of self-doubt?
So, and I try not to coach people on this too much, right? Because I think if you come to me and you're really worried about that, you would have gone to somebody else first. So I tend to find actually that when people come to you, they might have these concerns, but they've already really made up their mind and they're ready to go. So that's the first thing. If you're seriously considering it, you're probably already past that. Your mind's just telling you it's something more than what it is. And there are some phenomenal coaches out there who can help you overcome those anxieties. And I've got an associate who works with us who helps work through, facilitate clients recording on camera, that she'll manage the technology, but she's a senior BBC editor, so she'll ask the right questions, make sure they stay on track, all those sorts of things, and just add that bit of confidence. And I think we often need that just to get started. The first video is definitely the hardest. Until you come to the second video, then that's the hardest. By the time you get to video 6 or 7, actually this is just part of routine now. We're just doing this, and we're just in it for the long run. And I think that's important, is you've got to understand the things that you stand to gain from doing this. It is a rock to break down, it is a frog to eat, and nobody really wants to do it. But if you stick with it for the long term, and what I mean by that is, when I set out to start Javelin February last year, I made it my mission to live and die by my own sword. So I refused to get a website. I was offered free websites by friends. I was like, no, I'm not having a website. I'm going to build a landing page myself. It wasn't great, but it was a landing page. I'm not sure anybody used it. I don't remember anybody coming to me via it. And LinkedIn, social channels, I'm pretty much splashed across all the social channels to see what worked in the first year, and I'm going to start reining that back a little bit now as I enter the second year. But we did 6 figures last year, right? So if you're a business leader with that in your mind, is it worth doing? 100%. 100%. But don't be thinking about the short-term results. I tell people, if you get clients coming to you, you get inbound inquiries within the first 6 months of you creating video content or any social media content, you're probably going to get a lot of bad fit customers, because you haven't got enough content out there for them to fully do their research and make their own minds up. The people who come to you after 9 or 12 months, they're very qualified. I had a guy come to me about a month ago now, cold email into my inbox, booked straight onto my Calendly link on my diary for 2 days' time. We chatted for 17 minutes before he said, Paul, just give me a proposal, I love it. I gave him a proposal. He asked for an invoice. I sent him an invoice. Within an hour, it was paid. The next day, he recorded. 2 days later, he had his content back. Right, within a 4-day period, we went from a cold prospect to done. Right, and he loves it. He loves it. So my message is, I'm not saying that's possible for everyone, but have that in mind when you're doubting yourself about whether this is worthwhile doing or not, because that's a big thing for people.
I think that's crucial. I think that's absolutely crucial. And the thing that I preach, which I totally validate coming from yourself, Paul, in your world of video and the creation of that video, particularly online video, is that it's the ultimate trust building tool. There is nothing more powerful in this fake AI manipulative world that we're quickly evolving into so often on these social platforms. It's so powerful, video content. And I think, really confirming that why I think is important, understanding that this is future proofing your business. This is building your brand in a sustainable way. We spoke about this last week with Ryan, building your personal brand in a sustainable way. I think the couple of bits which I'd throw at you to get your thoughts on as well, Paul, is actually a very simple thing. Actually, if business leaders are watching this and they're about to maybe start their video content journey, I quite like to remind them that actually giving the question in their answer, having a sentence starter to just get them flowing out, is a really, really good thing to do. And the other thing is have that mindset of execution over perfection. Business leaders often speak to me and they're like, oh, can I have a script? Can I have a script in front of me? And it all of a sudden just gets really robotic, becomes less and less authentic, and almost it's more damaging. So what's your take on those two, Paul, on those 2 points, Paul? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm experienced now. I've done this for 5 years on building network and trust through video, right? I left a world of retail and policing behind, joined an AI consultancy and used video to build a pipeline there, right? So in 18 months, I put 200 opportunities into a funnel worth $25 million ERR. ERR, not just revenue, ERR, right? With C-suite, with enterprise business. And I did it through video, so 100%. But I come from a business where we used to talk to call centers. We were conversation analytics. So taking spoken conversation, transcribe it down and turn it into analysis of what those agents were doing and saying, the customer journey, what customers were saying, key topics, problems, the whole thing. It was fascinating. The one thing that I left that business from more than anything else is that agents, once they get a script in front of them, become robots.
Mm-hmm.
And it removes free choice. It removes natural tendencies to move out to other things. It is possible to script really well. So I'm not against scripts per se, but you've got to be able to give the same script time and time and time again as a talk, not as organic content for your month to month. If you're going to do a webinar that you want to run regularly, get it into some form of a script, repeat it until you know it by heart, and you can put your own act over the top of it like a professional actor would. But if you want to create more flexible content that can be used throughout the month, and next month you're going to do something totally different, avoid scripts altogether, stick with bullet points. Do something that ticks your box for your anxiety, because a lot of people want to make sure that they have all the points to hit, right? That's important. Have that there. Don't be afraid to take a moment to stop, pause, reflect on what that says, and then come back to the camera. But yeah, exactly that. When you try and script something, even I do it. Like I try to do it. I thought it would be a great idea to get some. I got a piece of software that would write a script for me for a video. It sounded brilliant. I read through the script. This is exactly what I want. This is brilliant. And then I tried to record it and I fell apart. I tried 5 times. I gave up. I deleted the software. I asked for a refund and I've never used it since. I've no doubt it works for some people, but certainly not for me.
I love that vulnerability, Paul. And there's so much wisdom and gold within what you've just said around scripting for sure. And I'm the same. I might have a couple of points maybe, but actually I'm mostly now off the cuff just because I've got into that execution over perfection mindset. In fact, a quick story actually for the listeners and watchers of this, and I'm sure you've got plenty of people like this as well, Paul. They were in this world of they needed it to be absolutely perfect. And then I won't name this client because it's very unfair, but essentially they ended up going to the beach, and rather than recording it in front of their desk, screw it. And they got their phone out and they just said it, and it was super authentic, super raw. Yeah. And then we went live with that piece of content, and she reported back into me a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, Chris, I couldn't believe it. That video did so well, but I didn't even really plan anything. I said, exactly. So I just don't want business owners to think that they have to overplan things. Paul, you've said there the word pipeline, and I'm always aware of this stigma around marketing being this fluffy thing that doesn't really move the needle. So what types of video convert into leads, into conversations, into profit? Tell me.
I think, in fact, I know that you need to take people through the journey, the buyer journey, right? I think deep down, we all know that there's the 3 stages to buying, right? You've got awareness, you've got consideration, you've got decision making. And in this day and age, more than ever, people don't want to be sold to directly. I don't want people in my inbox. I don't want people in my email. I don't want cold calls, right? And there are people that can do these things really well. And there are software, there are product services that you can sell that way and work really well, not taking anything away from those industries. But for me, if you want to create a good, solid, inbound, consistent pipeline, you've got to take people on that journey. So I talk to people a lot about a YouTube framework, and that confuses people because I don't want to be on YouTube. I want to be on LinkedIn because that's where all my customers are. That's fine. Don't worry about it. But what we see is with YouTube, it's quite a unique platform in that you can build your own video playlist. You can build sets of playlists, and you're in full control of what your audience see every time they visit that page. So imagine if you've got, we're 18 months down the line, you've got a vastly successful YouTube channel, leads are coming inbound all the time, they're coming to your website, they're booking meetings. What needs to have happened? Work backwards. What needs to have happened for them to do that? Right, well, you need at least 3 playlists. 1 to talk to the awareness side of things, 1 to talk to that consideration phase, 1 to talk to decision making. How do you do each of those things? What's the title of those playlists? And then what are the videos that sit within that? And what are their titles? And we're going to take a customer on a journey. If you were to sit and watch each playlist, would it convert me into a customer? And if you can create it in that way, and every time you create a video, just think to yourself, does it fit with that framework? Does it work? And just like you've just done there, Chris, like when I talk to people about that, lights turn on. Because all of a sudden it becomes simple. Because a content strategy doesn't need to be super complex. It needs to be achievable. All you've got to do is take people on that journey, show them that you're there, first of all, tell them who you are, what you do, and importantly, what you don't do. Because the bit that people forget about is this is as much about flushing out bad fit customers to someone else as it is about attracting the right people. And one thing that 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀 said in his recent audiobook that I was listening to, it's phenomenal. It's well worth a listen if you haven't heard it. And he talks about helping people to believe in you, right? You can't force someone to believe in something. If I said to you tomorrow, Chris, I want you to believe that the sky is pink, you'd be like, no, it's not, it's blue, right? And if I put a gun to your head, I'm not going to, don't worry. If I put a gun to your head and said, Chris, if you don't believe the sky is pink, I'm going to shoot you, you'd still know that the sky is blue. But what 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀 talks about is actually, if you show people that you're aligned with them through your thoughts and opinions and the things that you agree with, the things you don't agree with, they'll start to naturally align themselves with you, and they'll see that actually, me and Chris, we're pretty aligned for 95% of things. And when you say that one thing, which might be you need our products and services to solve this challenge, they currently believe you're not. But that causes cognitive dissonance because I believe I'm similar to Chris and I believe everything Chris says because I'm the same, but he's just said something I disagree with. So either I'm wrong or Chris is wrong. But if I believe 95% of everything else Chris says, what if? And it just creates that doubt. It hurts. And that's what you really want to create with people, is make them believe that you're the answer to their problems. You're the only answer to their problems.
I think that is fantastic, and I validate absolutely all of that, Paul. And I also am a mega 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘀 fan. Loads of the things that he talks about, I'm totally with him on that, and especially his content machine. If anyone can can repeat and actually do something similar and follow that blueprint, there'll be a success. Something that you've said there, actually, Paul, about sort of actually taking people on the buyer journey and trying to get themselves on that. One of the tools that I always recommend to clients is They Ask You Answer, right? Answerthepublic.com. Fantastic tool. They Ask You Answer is a book. Double that up with answerthepublic.com.
Yeah.
And say, for example, I type in social media marketing and I press enter into that tool. It's going to spit out at me all of the top searched questions into Google, right? So there's no more guessing. There's no more finger in the air. Or maybe my customers think that, or maybe the board want me to do that type of video. No, no, no. Facts don't care about feelings. Create video content based upon what people are actually searching. So you don't have to think about that. And I love your YouTube framework, Paul. And actually, I'll add something else onto that, if you don't mind. Forgive me, is please do put that on YouTube, because so many business owners don't publish their content onto YouTube. If you're going to, follow Paul's framework and put it onto YouTube, it's the second biggest search engine in the world. Why the hell aren't you using it? It's just such a powerful platform. And I spoke about that with Jack Reeve in a former episode of A Coffee with Chris, actually, Paul. So I'm so happy you said that. And let's go on to mistakes, if you don't mind, Paul. And I'm sure there are literally hundreds of mistakes, but if you could maybe refine that into the top 3 mistakes that business owners are making with their video content creation, what would you say those are, and how can they move through them?
The biggest mistake, definitely the biggest mistake that I see, is trying to talk about themselves and their business too early. So talking about your business is super, super hard. I feel so much pressure when I'm trying to concisely say what it is that we do. And I had to get outside help, right? Like there's no two ways about it. Stephen King doesn't write his own dust jacket because he can't, because he's just written 400 pages or more, 800 in some of them. I'm a big Stephen King fan. Like, he can't write his own dust jacket because he couldn't distill that down to 3 paragraphs. Most people can't. It's uncomfortable. It puts a lot of pressure on. And if that's your first experience of video, you're not going to do anymore. And I had a guy who was not a customer, but he was getting support from me, with somebody that I know from a networking group, and he sent me a message. He's like, Paul, I've re-recorded this video 6 times. What am I doing wrong? You're trying to talk about your own business. It's super, super hard. Talk about other things first. Come back to the business. I know it feels like the most important thing in the world for you to talk about, but ironically, it's also the last thing people care about. If they're aligned with you, they will look for their own information about your business, and you will become comfortable talking about it, and you can talk about it later. The second thing is using assertive expert language. And it's still something I'm going through right now. I say, I think this, I think that. I do it in emails, I do it in text, I do it on video. Stop doing it. Stop doing it. We know you think it, but it makes you sound like you're hedging yourself around making a statement. You're covering yourself, you're being defensive, and it makes you sound like much less of an expert. It's up there with using filler words and things. Filler words are really hard to train yourself out of saying. I'm more or less there now, but not quite. And I'd argue that some filler words, ums and ers, actually make you a little bit more likable. So don't get rid of them altogether, but try and eliminate. I often get clients that'll use 500 filler words in 20 minutes. That's a lot of editing. That is a lot of editing. We can get rid of most of them, but that's a lot of editing. But I think really damages your credibility with people. And I see some really expert people who are fantastic at what they do. There is zero doubt that they are the experts, the go-to experts for their industry, still use the words I think. So try and eliminate that above everything else. And the third thing is people are afraid to start. That's the next thing for me is people spend so long waiting for that perfect moment. I'm going to wait until the website's ready. We're just going through a rebrand where I'm too busy at the moment. I'm waiting for Christmas. Santa's coming. He's going to bring me a new microphone. I don't know, all these things, right? Like, just start. Just start. My wife said to me, we want to have another baby, right? I'm like, yes, we want to have another baby. Right. But, you're just starting your own business. So should we wait? Like, wait for what? Like, wait for what? What, you want to wait for 2 years until maybe it doesn't work out then? Or do you want to wait for the first year and maybe it doesn't work out then? I wait, might not ever work out. Stop waiting for the right time. Just go for it. Just go for it. And we did. He's 9 months old. Couldn't be happier. We've had a 15 months in the business. I've never missed payroll at the end of the month. Fingers crossed. We're all good. If you wait for perfect, it might never happen. Just open the door, walk through it, and see where it takes you. I promise you won't regret it. If you stick with it, you promise you won't regret it.
I didn't expect to be talking about baby analogies, Paul, but I think it's a perfect one. I think it's a perfect one. Like, I Can't emphasize this enough. And I know it sounds a bit blue sky fluffy, but genuinely, one video can change your life. It can change your business. If you're publishing on YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, I see this time after time, and not just with B2C businesses, with B2B too. So please listen to Paul's advice and try and implement as much of it as you can. Paul, thank you so much. One of the most ram-packed full of value conversations I've had on this show. So thank you. And Paul, where can people go to connect with you, to check out your business, to learn more?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I answer everything by hand. There is no automated inbox in my inbox. I don't have a VA. I do everything by hand. So catch me on LinkedIn. You can probably search for Paul Banks on there. You might not find me. If you search for Paul Banks Javelin, you'll definitely find me. There's thousands of Paul Bankses. Sorry, everyone. If you're interested to find out more about the business, it's javelincontent.com.
Paul, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Chris. Thanks for having me along. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you so much for everyone watching and perhaps listening to this back as well. If you've enjoyed this conversation, give us a like on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, leave a 5-star review, and chuck your comments in on social media. If you've got any questions for myself, for Paul, please do feel free to tag us, and we'll happily help you with any questions you might have on the video content production process. As always, a massive thank you to Big C, our local cancer charity who help people affected by cancer, and to our official sponsor, Hill Coaching Company. And I will see you this time next week for another episode of A Coffee with Chris.